You're ready.
Okay, thank you. So we're here this evening at a planning board meeting on Wednesday, September 28th. We have a short agenda tonight, but here we go. So our first item is a public hearing for BASSO 5611 King Street. It's an application for a site development plan application to create an outdoor seating area in the rear patio area. So first, there's a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
Second? All in favor? Okay, see, there's that 7-second delay for Dick, because he's coming in from Zoom. In any event, good. Here we are, so perhaps the applicant can briefly fill us in on what's going on, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, I'll jump in. I'm Bill Spade, the architect for BASSO 56. This is Alex Cola, one of the partners, and then Ellen is on the Zoom call. She and her husband Paolo's the chef, and they're the other partners in the restaurant. So we're here to request the planning board's approval for seating in the rear patio, or on the rear patio. It's a existing open area on the rear of the property. It's 744 square feet in total. And so you have a plan. Here's the, I'll look at the visuals on the screen. This is the area map showing the parcels, and you see 11 King Street sort of sandwiched in there. It's in the BRP zone. So it has a pivotal item, which is access to the municipal parking that's available. The current building fronts the sidewalk right on the property line at the front, and then has this open area at the rear. It's a one-story building, has a full restaurant on the one floor. They opened in what month, Alex?
May 28th.
May 28th, after
Exactly 4 months.
a longer than hoped for renovation process, but they're very they're doing well. They're very excited about being here and looking forward to making their home here in Chappaqua. The plan you see in front of you shows in red the open rear area of the property that we're proposing to do this patio. This is an older version of a photo that shows some sort of
Parking's on the opposite side, yeah.
correct, right? Yes, good point. Right, they've moved the parking. So that box-in area on the rear is the area of the property that we're proposing this patio. If you want to go to the all right, sorry, can't remember the sequence of photos. These photos, the next, I think 3 photos show what that area looks like presently. There was gravel before with a sort of deteriorating fence, and Alex and group have replaced the fence and replaced the gravel to just fix that all up.
Bill, one quick question. So
Yes.
the proposed lighting will be underneath that little barricade that's up sort of over the top of the fence?
Correct, exactly.
And
Right,
they'll
it's a 6-foot high fence, and we'll mention shortly that the proposed lighting will be mounted to the post of the fence, 3 feet high. So no lighting above the fence level. But this gives you an idea of what the perimeter fencing looks like, and it's in good condition. An important part is that we'll be retaining the gravel finish on the patio just to avoid having to get into stormwater issues that would probably be very complicated and expensive to solve. So that's good there. Again, another view. This is the rear of the property that faces onto the Susan Lawrence property. The plan you see here, particularly the part at the top, shows the rear patio area with the proposed tables. So we're proposing 12 tables total with four seats per table, so a total of 48 seats. And in the layout, there's a little anomaly. A portion of the patio area has been fenced in for years, extends onto the neighboring property. And so while we're showing that fence, we are not intending to use any part of that neighboring property. The neighbor is friendly and appreciates the work that Alex and partners have done, but we're not showing any use that extends onto their property. Otherwise, the rest of the fencing is on the 11 King Street property and is part of their improvements. This plan shows the existing restaurant. The existing restaurant has 75 total seats, and including in the bar area. So one element of what you all are looking at is our parking requirement. And on, Felicia, if you can go back up to the prior plan, in the corner in small letters, you can see it larger in front of you there. We've done a summary of the parking requirement. And in essence, the additional seating, the 48 seats, would require a parking count of 1 space per 3 seats. So we would need 16 total additional spaces for those 48 seats. The existing
I
restaurant.
would just like to say, just for the board's reference, that typically, because this application is within the BRP, meaning they're in the parking district, what we started to do was just have them identify what their parking requirement would have been in accordance with the code, so that we had a good sense of what it would be required versus them being in the parking district, just to have it on the plan.
Correct. We did do, just to give the board a little more flavor of the parking availability then, one thing that I didn't mention, the hours that are proposed for this use is from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So that's their current hours. They may at some point extend to lunch hour during the day, but at the moment it's the 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. timeframe. We did a little our own visual analysis of the parking, and actually for 3 separate evenings over recent weeks, we looked at what's the parking that's available. In total, there are 168 parking spaces between Lower King Street. There's 12 spaces along there. Actually, Felicia, could you go back to the
It's Sabrina Manning.
Oh, Sabrina, sorry.
That's okay.
Go back to the area map that showed that, the boxed in property up towards the top of the presentation. I just wanted to be able to give everybody this reference in terms of, there, perfect. Oh, that's good too. So Lower King Street has a total of 12 parking spaces. We considered the sort of immediate area that we were looking at available parking to be Lower King Street, North Greeley, the North Greeley parking lot, and then I call it the Lower King Street parking lot in behind all the buildings there. I don't know, Sabrina, is there another formal name for that train station parking area? So I'll
Isn't
call
that
it
on
the Lower-
Allen Place? Is that on Allen Place?
Yes. So I'll call it
Yes,
the
that's Allen Place.
parking lot. So for all of those parking areas, there's a total of 168 parking spaces available, a number of which are not painted striped, so you have to kind of use your imagination to see that they're, what the parking spots are, but 168 total. I looked at those available spaces at different times on 3 different evenings. One a Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock, another one a Friday evening at 6:30, and then another one on a Saturday evening at 7 o'clock. On the Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock, there were 94 of the 168 spaces available. On the Friday evening at 6:30, there were 43 spaces available. And on the Saturday evening, at 7 p.m., there were 54 spaces available. So still at that, especially Friday and Saturday evening, there's still quite a few parking spaces available. Many of those were the Allen Place parking lot, as well as the North Greeley parking lot. It seems that there are employees of businesses, and then of course the Allen, for the North Greeley, it seems employees of businesses that park there and leave at 5 o'clock or before, and then train station related parking, it seems, on the Allen Place parking area. Again, a number of spaces emptying by 5 o'clock there. So in the evening hours, maybe 50% utilization or so of those parking areas. So that we feel is also additional support to say the 16 spaces we're proposing can be well accommodated by the available parking even on Friday evenings and Saturday evenings. One other piece I wanted to mention, and Sabrina, if you can go further down, I was just going to show the light fixtures that we're proposing. We did talk about that. On the fence, we're going to mount and Alex, you even brought a visual display just to liven up your evening. It's rarely I get to see these.
Souvenirs, we all get one?
Yeah, right. You want to pass it around? This is the post-mounted light.
LED?
LED, 3000 Kelvin and less. I guess there are 16 posts surrounding that patio area, so we'll mount one at 3 feet just to light the grade area so that people can see where they're walking. And then on each table, we're gonna put one of these beautiful little things so that there's lighting at each table.
Oh, I see, yeah.
These are battery operated lights, LED, 3000 Kelvin, and
How many
these,
lumens?
what's the lumens? 150.
See, I just don't know whether you've actually done a lighting test to see whether the combination of these two sources is enough to actually light the space for waitresses to get around, so on and so forth. And I'm not suggesting you haven't, but if you haven't, you might want to look at that. Or we put something in the resolution that says this is your lighting.
Yeah, okay. These are 400 Kelvin, or 400 lumens, sorry, I said it wrong. And we'll surround that entire
I
area,
understand,
right?
I'm just asking whether you actually know that that's gonna work. You might test it. I don't know how you wanna validate that. I'm sorry, Sabrina, I'm sorry I'm talking. I don't know whether you wanna validate that for your own purposes.
Yeah,
Because I wanna be sure that we're doing the right thing for you.
got it.
Sorry,
Okay.
Sabrina.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that the resolution isn't as specific as, it talks about the number of lights, but the most important factor in the resolution is that it doesn't exceed our lighting standard. So, that's kind of the genesis of it. In an instance where, they've installed these and it doesn't appear to be enough light and they come in for, to change like the building permit and they add, let's say, 2 more lights, it would be an insignificant change as long as they're within the standard of the town.
So does the lighting which is attached to the posts is hardwired?
No, well, yeah, low voltage though.
It's hardwired, right?
Right.
And so that's subject to building permit approval?
I don't think
Correct.
it's low voltage, not as low voltage.
If it's low voltage, it's not required.
Right,
Okay, and the table mounted are not required.
battery, right.
So this is outside of the scope of the building department permit approval.
Correct.
But
And so-
they will verify when they're out there, they will verify when they go out for a C of O, that everything as it is supposed to be.
So you mean everything is supposed to be so that there will be a certainty that they don't exceed the light level?
Correct,
And no outside spillage.
Yeah,
correct.
which was the critical part, right? That's all
Yes.
low pointing, nothing
Right,
is
the
above.
style of the light and the placement of the light, there will not be spillage.
Right. Good, okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I saw at least, recommendation of 180 lumens for walking surfaces in an outdoor area. So these are 400 lumens rimming that space.
I think it's gonna be very nice.
like
I
a
just
little
want to be sure
suffice.
that you're okay
Thank you.
with the way it's
Yeah.
gonna turn out.
Right,
Okay,
I love it.
all right, great.
I think that's all we would present, if anybody has any questions.
Super.
I don't have questions for you, but I have a question for Sabrina about the parking district. And
Yes.
there's an ask of 16 spaces, I guess. The spaces that you now occupy, you have as part of have already been approved as part of a previous application permit, building
His
permit.
grandfather, right,
Grandfathered in.
right.
So are the 16 spaces grandfathered in also, or is that by application?
No, those are grandfathered in as well. The fact that this property is within the parking district, the treatment of this previously has been, if you were in the parking district at some time in the past, you may have provided land to the town through an easement, or you will benefit from the surrounding available parking. This area was designated to benefit from the surrounding parking, and whatever uses are there can make use of that surrounding parking.
Okay, that's good. I think I remember that, but it's still, for me, it calls up a question. There is no, I don't know what the right word is, but there's no apportionment of the available parking to a lot size. Is that right?
No, correct,
So it's first come, first serve, essentially.
correct, yes.
Because sooner or later, if the town is,
Booming.
increases in density, right, and grows in the way in which I think the town board would like to see it grow, increase in activity, put it that way. That sooner or later, the parking district would run out of spaces. I know there's a proposal, I don't know how formal the proposal is, I won't say the process, but there is a proposal out there for the Rite Aid site, which is asking for a lot of parking. And so I guess I'm asking, not a question that really necessarily applies to you guys,
No.
but, and maybe for future conversation, what are the protections for people who are in the parking district but may not get in the window soon enough, because all the parking spaces are taken by people who got in first, not being able to take advantage of the benefits that are being provided by the town?
I think that there's a misunderstanding that there's parking spaces that are being allocated. There's no specific parking space for this building, for anyone in the parking district.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that. I didn't say that.
Right, I mean, so it is something.
Maybe I implied it, but so there's no count that you do? So
There's no count that the town has undertaken to date regarding available parking.
so is there a count that the town's going to need to do?
Yes, this is all future analysis for the town.
Because by the time you do that count, you're gonna be doing it probably when you discover that you run out of parking spaces. And you're gonna end up maybe with a situation where some of these people who got in late, developed after all the parking spaces were taken are left out in the cold. That's not something we're gonna decide here, but it's an issue that I think might go forward in the discussions of North Greeley and how the Chappaqua develops in the future.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Sabrina, you had some notes? Want to run through your
Sure,
comments?
I wanted to make the planning board aware that this application, due to its nature, we scheduled it for a public hearing, and we have a draft resolution prepared in the event that you so choose to move forward with approving it. We did undertake proper notice, so it is a public hearing at this moment. As Bill had explained, they're looking at 16 fence-mounted low-voltage fixtures that meet the lighting standard of 3,000 Kelvin. They're proposed to be mounted at a 3-foot height along the 6-foot stockade fence, so they're low enough. There will be no off-site light spillage. And And then they're looking at the table lights, also low voltage, which are battery operated, and should not create off-site spillages in addition to the other lights. I had a reference that note number 2 on the plan should be amended to reflect 3,000 Kelvin. It currently says 4,000 Kelvin. And then for the board's information, this application is considered a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So no further review is required.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I have a question or two.
Sure, I don't think, just for the record, I guess, Bob and obviously Dennis didn't have any issues with regard to this application. Very few trees are being cleared for it, so we're okay.
Very few.
Thank goodness. So Dick, you had a question?
Yeah, first one, how are you going to clean the gravel when people drop food on the gravel?
Okay. That's
Because
part
if
of-
you leave the stuff there, you're going to attract vermin, I would suggest.
that will be like a consistent cleaning like we normally do. Like,
Can't hear
there will be a consistent cleaning, like we do inside of the restaurant, like or outside. There will be a consistent cleaning, consistent maintenance, making sure it's always clean, making sure it's always like free of leaves or free of anything like in the floor. So it will be a consistent cleaning, consistent maintenance.
Would you, I think you
How does the
presume to,
maintenance work? I
also-
mean, if your food drops on the gravel, what do? Shovel up that gravel and wash it someplace and then
Yes.
return it? How does that work?
Yes, by
Yeah.
raking. You can rake it up and you can rinse it off and wash it down, and that's how you consistently clean the gravel.
Well, that has to be done
Dick.
carefully because
hey, Dick,
it's not easy to clean gravel.
hey, Dick,
So-
I was just gonna say, there is an exterior hose bit there. I would certainly presume and expect that they would be washing that gravel down on a regular basis to, maintain its cleanliness for that reason. You're right.
Well, that's a hypothetical answer. What proof do you have that that will be the case? I mean, it's not a clean, easy to clean surface. And so I'm thinking that maybe you need to have the ability to do as Alex suggested, clean this, and I did too, clean the stone up and wash it and replace it, or have a high pressure hose out there that can sort of dilute it and get it to go away that way.
We do have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me
have
for a minute. I have another question. The other question is, where is the garbage going to be kept? Is that going to be? It's going to be an expanded area of seating and everything, and you're going to have, more garbage that you have to deal with, and that's going to be somewhere where the garbage is now inside.
Well, we're gonna have a station covered for the garbage, and then we'll take it out and we bring it to the where we bring it every night. We bring it outside to the.
There's a dumpster.
Yeah, there's a dumpster in at the end of the
Excuse me
parking
for a minute.
Yeah.
I have a problem. I don't have any question.
lot.
So there's a dumpster at the end that is just the.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we do right
Is that
now.
the end of
Yeah.
King Street, Lower King Street?
Yeah.
So it's
Offsite
offsite.
island, yeah, offsite.
Okay.
We have we'll have like we have it in a restaurant. We have the garbage bins and then garbage bags, tie it up, and then we take it out.
To that dumpster? Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the dumpster that businesses right around there use.
Yeah, we have the key for that.
It's at the end of Allen Place? Where it is?
Yes, correct.
That's what I thought. Right.
And then we'll have like a station where we'll keep the garbage concealed, covered, everything. Like isolated, so it will not be like in the presence of the customers. It will be like further out.
How often is that picked up? Do you know?
Every night.
No, I mean, the
At the
service dumpster. Twice
Oh,
a week?
that's picked up every night, I believe. Like when we go the next day there too, it's almost
Oh,
empty.
really?
So
That's
they
fantastic.
clean it all the time. The dumpster is kept very clean.
Great. Good. Any other questions, board members?
And the garbage.
Dick, did you hear that response, by the way, about the garbage and the dumpster that's out on Lower King Street?
Allen Place.
Allen Place, sorry.
You're on mute, Dick.
Okay, thank you. So the dumpster is on King Street.
Allen Place.
They're kind of at that corner where
Yeah.
Lower King Street
Yeah,
turns
that's
into.
where we take the garbage.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's actually, they say it's picked up on a daily basis from the dumpster.
Okay.
on place,
Yeah.
which is terrific.
It never gets back to the seating area that is the subject of
Absolutely not.
the application.
Good.
And
Okay.
I have one last curiosity. I mean, this is a big expansion, and I hope it works. It sounds like it'll attract people. Outside is nice until you get to November, but with this big expansion, will there be enough public service? Toilets and things like that. I would assume that the existing facility has some, and if that's deemed adequate, that's good. I don't think we really have a measure on how to add or subtract toilets and things, but it would just be, helpful that these are good systems and it works. They work right now, so they should continue to work.
Right. Yeah, there's existing bathrooms and that's sufficient for the additional seating.
I would think,
Okay,
Dick,
excellent.
I would think that that's the kind of thing that Tom DeFold watches very carefully for the town.
I would think so. Do you anticipate using heaters and expanding beyond just the usual summer season?
Everything probably according, like by the time comes, if, we might consider using that for the heaters as well. Absolutely.
Okay.
But then everything like the court, depends on the weather, depends
Sure,
on the time, depends how this plays out. So everything will be like according.
Yep.
We'll see first. We need to start to,
Yes.
and then.
Hopefully you'll have the problem.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, good for you. I hope it works. I'm sure it will.
Good. Any other questions?
No, but I think we should have a comment about the ones I made about the cleaning and, sort of saying that, okay, and the garbage is not a problem because it's picked up every day type of thing or whatever is reasonable, so that it's in the record.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the public? Do we have anyone with electronic hand remotely?
No,
Okay,
there's no
pretty
one, no one wanting to speak at this time.
Okay. Well, do we want to close the public hearing at this time?
Yes.
If so, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So we close the public hearing. We also have a draft resolution in front of us that our staff has prepared for us in connection with this application. We've had a chance to review it. Dick, I think, wants to add a couple of friendly suggestions with regard to the, first we have to change that. I saw that also the Kelvin has to be changed to 3,000.
Right.
Oh, that's, okay, that's been taken care of, excuse me. You want to put something in there about the cleaning and that there's, how would we do that, Drew? Is there anything that we would word to say that, use of the current garbage collection system is part of the resolution? I think it's implied always, and, but maybe something about this floor treatment?
Says here the applicant shall note on the site plan, okay, so it doesn't say when to be used, but it does talk about the location, the garbage and recycling.
Mm-hmm. So that's probably sufficient,
Yeah, I think it's there.
Yep, it's there, which is probably standard, because that's.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
There's a garbage district as well as a parking district. So,
The other thing on the subject of cleaning, it's not clear to me that that's in our purview.
there's no Board of Health.
Yeah, I don't know how you put a suggestion like that in an application and not have it binding. It just doesn't seem like it's something that we do anyway. How should we
Right.
proceed with that
Well,
comment?
especially in this case, because the garbage is taken off site.
I'm talking about cleaning the gravel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's, that's hard to, it's a hard condition to add. One, it's hard to enforce if we're going to say it has to be cleaned a certain way. We're not on site every day to ensure that it's
I think
clean.
it's more of a Board of Health issue.
It's exactly, they're
maintenance,
going to,
enforcement.
exactly, I was going to say that those are the standards that they have to maintain to
Right,
to
right.
keep their restaurant open.
We have other people for this to deal with.
Exactly,
Planning board.
if they have
Thank
dirty gravel and vermin, they're going to have big issues. Their patrons are going to clearly complain and,
Yeah.
you know, you're gonna get the health department in there and,
That's what they do, they go to the health department, right?
exactly, health
Well,
department.
I'm sure we have visits from the health department on
Yeah,
a nice and frequent basis.
Yeah.
that's why we try to keep it
Yes.
always.
Yes, because restaurants are, you know, really, they're very high level in their attention.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and it's not gonna be good for business.
Okay. All right, do we have any other thoughts or changes on the resolution?
Not me.
It's fine.
Eldad, Dick, anything? All set?
I'm gonna abstain only because I missed the majority of the conversation, if that's all right.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion then to approve the resolution as drafted?
Yes. So-
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, except for to the calendar.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in the resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Last point 8, they have it.
Yep, that's already done. So that would be 4-0, one abstention, and for the record, Bill, you just participated, I think, in the fastest approval we've ever done. Your letter came in September 6th, and here you are on September 28th at 7:38, and you're done.
Congratulations.
You got away with wearing the Green Bay hat next time.
It's all the Packers hat. No,
Next
we-
time it better be Jets or you're in trouble.
But if I wear a Jets hat, we're all in trouble.
Exactly. Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, and on behalf of Alex and Ellen and
Good luck.
Paolo, they appreciate greatly because
Well, it's not just us, I mean, you know, without our staff doing this and getting it set up, they tee it up for us,
Yes.
so they did a great job teeing it up, identifying that this is something we can move on quickly.
Right.
And this is our new policy as much as possible, to move these things along.
next time I come to the planning board, I'm all set, ready to go for the one night meeting.
Yeah, don't come in with a subdivision.
Hey, you know what they're doing now?
Yeah, exactly. They're
Good luck.
giving away approvals.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Crazy Eddie.
Yeah. And
Great. All
and
right.
on behalf of them,
Forward to
they
it. Good luck.
welcome you to visit if you haven't yet. Great food is delicious.
We've heard great things.
Yes.
Okay, we move now to the next item. This is a
Very much. Good
continued
night, everyone.
formal appearance
Good night.
before the board.
Good evening. Thank you,
This is,
thank you.
good luck down in Florida. This is the MIDAS Main Street Lot Court, 90 Inningwood Road. This is an application for a site development plan, steep slopes, and tree removal plan.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Did you announce me already?
Yes, yeah,
Oh, sorry. There was a lot of background noise. I didn't catch it. How's everybody
Yeah.
doing tonight?
yep, okay, yep,
I
you're all
was
set.
wondering why everybody was sitting there quietly. So yeah, this is for the construction of the one-bedroom house on Inningwood Road.
One
My
family
cli-
house, not one bedroom.
one- One family dwelling on 90 Inningwood Road. The client is here from Midas Main Street Construction. His name is William DeVore. Since we appeared, I believe, in the May meeting, the board had a chance to do a site walk. And we had everything staked out. While you were out doing the meeting, we did try to address some of the comments. We had the traffic study performed for the entrance, for the sight lines. I did revise the driveway to match the town engineer's suggestion on the profile. The grading's been revised for that, and we also supplied a landscape plan, which is new to the package. So, and you had met the client, I believe, out on site when you
Yes.
did the site walk, and that all went well.
Yep.
And I believe at this time we still have a few comments to address: the town engineer's memo and the environmental coordinator's memo. There is some questions regarding tree sizes and replanting of the sizes. Dennis, I'm not sure if Dave had a chance to speak to you. He was going to speak to you on that.
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay. We did prepare a SWIP on the project, which has been completed, which that'll be submitted in the next submission package. We just didn't have time to get it in before this meeting. But really all that changed is this system got smaller, this system got a little bigger.
Okay. Great.
But other than that, the house is in the same spot. Other than grading, the driveway's in the same spot. The entrance is in the same spot.
Okay.
With that being
Sabrina,
said,
you want to run through your comments? Sabrina?
My comments, I don't really have that many comments in the sense that, you know, I look at the planning aspects of the zoning compliance with this. You know, the information is still the same in the sense that it meets all of the zoning criteria. I still would like to see clarification of the clearing and grading limit line on the plan. You know, while it's there, it's very hard to decipher. So maybe making it a little bit more distinguishable from the rest of the lines, I think would be helpful. It is a type 2 action. As I said last time, that hasn't changed. There's a coverage calculation worksheet that was submitted. It's still within the limitations, you know, within the requirements of the code. And, you know, the 96 trees that they're proposing to remove have been under review by Dennis. I think that there's still some information, and, you know, I defer to Bob Cioli regarding information that is necessary in order for the board to fully, you know, review this application. Bob, do you want to go forward and kind of talk about?
If the chairman wants me to.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you could do it briefly, Bob, because I certainly have other comments on this that really were the result of the site walk. So, I don't know, maybe I should go first.
Yeah, I'll summarize it.
Everyone's night. You know, I want to thank the applicant because you staked out everything out there very, very clearly, very terrifically, and thank you for the time spent with us. We do the site walks because very often they're very, very informative and they really help us. For me personally, when I was out there, it gives me a better appreciation of the lay of the land, the SSDS areas that you've designated, which seem to be terrific, perfect. But it also reveals other issues in terms of the siting and other challenges. So, you know, we have these issues with regard, and we can run through those later on from Bob's memo in terms of the current proposal and the stormwater and site plans. But we still have some fundamental issues one fundamental issue that we really have got to get resolved, and that is the ownership of the property between your property, the applicant's property, and Inningwood Road. At this point, we still don't know whether it's owned by the town of Newcastle, the state of New York, perhaps even a private owner. I suspect that's not the case. But we believe that fundamental issue's got to be resolved because there could be very, very different treatments between the town of Newcastle and the state of New York with regard to that strip and the access. Frankly, if it's owned by the town of Newcastle, between all of us here, quickly and silently, secretly, we're probably easier to work with than the state of New York, but we really need to have that information. We've asked for it now several times, and I will tell you that we will not schedule this application again until we have, you know, the information from the title company or otherwise telling us what the property situation is here. So that's got to be resolved. The other issue was, from my standpoint, I don't know if Tom agreed, we weren't out there together, I don't know if others went out there subsequent to our visit. But, the proposed application with the benching of the rocks, et cetera, is very striking. And what we also have is a proposal that I've never seen in all the years I've been on the board. And that is, we have a proposal for basically 2 access driveways for construction of a single-family home. You might see this perhaps in some sort of industrial development, some sort of commercial development, but this is most unusual, I think unique. And when I walked the construction road, it struck me that there were some potential possibilities that is a better route to take rather than the proposed route that we have directly coming off as currently proposed. And I suspect, at least for the westbound traffic on Inningwood Road, that the traffic would be slower at the construction road level. People are just coming up the hill from the intersection. They haven't gathered all that speed yet. It's very steep there. Perhaps the sight lines are better from that side of the traffic. I have no idea on the other side. I'm not an engineer, but the bottom line is, without getting involved with architectural detail, I think it's really important that we investigate an alternative access to this housing site. I'm certainly not in favor of seeing 2. One way or the other, the applicant's going to have to make a decision, from my perspective anyway, just one person voting here, that there should only be a single access for this property. We should not see duplicate impacts to the steep slopes, trees, et cetera, for the access for construction of the SSDS separate and apart from the building. So I think we really need, and not a straw dog application, I think we really need to see an alternative coming up that construction road. And frankly, I think a little bit the entrance of the construction road can be moved so it works better with the grade. But a real analysis in terms of what happens with the slopes, or what happens with the sight lines, what happens with the tree impacts, what you have to do in terms of supporting walls and cut and fill, because what we see with the current proposal is a very, very significant amount of cut and fill, rock blasting, rock drilling. And I'm not suggesting that it will be less, but we really need to look at it to see if we've done our due diligence. I personally think that the house siting is terrific. It really works well for this lot. But one of the problems that we have with that driveway coming in the other areas, you're sinking the house down in that little area, that sort of valley, and that creates even more walls and rock cuts to the west of the house, which again is just more impact. So from my perspective, the sidewalk was very instructive, and it opened, at least to my mind, that we need to investigate an alternative access to this property. We need to take care of the other stuff, and then of course a full analysis in terms of what the sight lines are, what the stormwater impacts are, and working with the town engineer. And one other thing that I think it's important and fair to throw out at this point is that it's probably very likely that a performance bond will be required, however we do this and however we approve this, for the work that will be done for the access to the house on whatever property that, whoever owns that property. We're very concerned that the extent of work is very significant. We've been through changes in real estate markets and plans changing in the midst or being abandoned. This property already has a history of one abandonment, so that's something that's probably going to be required under the steep slopes. So those are my comments. Tom, I don't know if you had other comments, if you want to take Bob's at this point, but those are my thoughts. I think we can do better working with the applicant to get you approved and get you done. But I was very much struck by, of course, the current proposal in terms of what actually being out there and looking down from the top of that cliff down onto the road. I think I measured it was over 30 feet. I think when I did the topos. It might not be 30.
That's part of the reason why we can't have the entrance there. The previous application, way back when we went through the whole design process of this entrance slowly worked its way up to where it is now. The sight lines don't work and it's just too low. You can never get up to the house. You know, the grades for the driveway and pretty much the septic's where it's got to be in the stormwater because there's, you know, basically rock everywhere else.
Well, I understand the septic and, you know, they're out there in that area. We certainly understand that. Obviously you've done your internal work, but then you need to share that with us because at least from my standpoint, we really need to see something that might potentially have significantly less impact. I mean, you're proposing impact along whoever this property is, the property owner is, to the west of you know, way off your site, west along Inningwood Road. I mean, that's very unusual to see that kind of impact.
For me, what prompts my concern, what prompts the two entrances, I think, is the difficulty with the site, obviously. And I think that Bob's concern is correctly placed, but I also think that if you look at the proposed driveway entrance for the house and the difference in grade between that point of entry and that to the construction road, it's a 40-foot drop.
Correct.
And so you're falling 40 feet in order to enter to get back up to, right? And I don't think you have enough linear run on the property to do it at acceptable driveway grade to get up to the house site.
That's correct, yeah. This was just meant for an excavator, just to bring it in to chip rock so we didn't chip rock from the road. So we're gonna bring an excavator up this hillside and then restore all this. And this way we could chip the rock from the back and not sit in the road chipping rock. That was the original thought.
Well, but I have a very, very big concern with the driveway entrance that you do want to have for the house. Not its location and plan, because it makes sense, but the extreme amount of earthwork that your drawing shows in order to achieve it, to get the sight lines and to get the cut in and to do all of that. I mean, it really is very dramatic. There's no other way to say it. It looks to me like it's a freeway interchange, and I've done freeway interchanges. Believe it or not, I've graded for freeway interchanges. So I'm an architect, but that's what I did on a couple of projects. And it just looks like it's at that scale. And to me, it's entirely inappropriate for the neighborhood and entirely inappropriate for a single family home. And so I'd like Bob Scioli, if you would, to walk us through the sightline condition and the grading that is being shown here. If you can look at it from your perspective and whether you think it's adequate and if the engineering is appropriate for the need here.
Thank you, Tom. Based on the sightline analysis, excuse me, they submitted, it seems good, and what they established as the grade, as the speed, 40 miles an hour coming on down. I need a little bit more information on exactly how they calculated it. I need some backup calculations, but putting all that aside, I still need a lot more information on how they're going to grade it out, because the grading and the sight lines on the plan that was done by Kellogg didn't match the plan that was done by Collier. And they didn't give me enough information to see exactly how much they have to grade. More specifically, looking left coming out the driveway up the hill where they're coming down 40 mph. So there was a lot to be desired in the acceptability of the sightline analysis they had done. So as my comments indicate, there's a lot of information that was lacking on it. And that's why comments SLA to A through G try to get across. So that was the biggest concern I had. As far as the grading coming out that driveway, I mean, the reason it's probably so excessive is because of the cut, obviously, and they have to get a gradient that meets the code for driveway grades, of course, starting from the edge of pavement, going up to the finished floor elevation of the house. And because of the 2-on-1 slopes, which are required as per steep slopes, the grading is expanded outward that much further. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are about if there's any type of material out there that can be a stone wall. If there is a stone retaining wall there, it would cut down on the impacts of the grading. And maybe they can put a tiered wall in there. I think when they came in originally with the application many, many years ago, they did have a tiered system in there that would cut down on the amount of huge impacts to the tree removal and the vegetation removal and or rock removal. So that's something I believe was brought to the last meeting too as well.
Yeah, we have tiered walls.
To have a tiered retaining wall system coming in off the entrance. And that would, I think in my mind, Tom, to answer your question, cut down on the amount of grading that you need there, if that answers your question.
Well, it does, and that's what, because absolutely, and not only for the driveway cut, but for this dramatic, heroic cut that's being made in order to achieve the sightline to the west. And I plotted at home. I plotted the intersection of the sightline to the existing grade. And it seemed to me, by the use of a retaining wall, which would not have to be very big, I mean, in the neighborhood of maybe at most 4 or 5 feet in certain locations, probably less. If you actually plot those points, I think one would discover that you don't need to do that cut. That is a sheer rock face anyway. And it's inherently stable anyway. I mean, maybe there needs to be an engineering study to sort of validate that. And I'm sure that can be done. But I don't understand cutting this rock face, which, as Bob rightly says, it's like going off the Grand Canyon when you stand up there and look down. I don't see cutting that back if it's not structurally necessary. So
if I may interrupt, we are
Yeah.
not cutting the rock wall back. We previously were going to cut the rock wall back when we were going to plant some evergreens, but due to the landscape plan, there's hollies that are going to be put in front of there. So with the sight line to where the rock ledge is 15 feet. So within the 15 feet, we're just going to grade, take out the shrubs and the vines and clean it up and put hollies in front, not touching the rock ledge wall. That's the face of the wall that's existing there now.
Well, I don't understand that because that's not what your topo shows. Your
Well,
topo
we walked
shows.
the site. I was there. I pointed it out to Dennis at the site. He saw where the stakes were to where the rock ledge was. It was.
I'm sorry, but I'm looking at a drawing that's being submitted. Okay, I'm looking, not that drawing. I don't care about that drawing. I'm talking about the topo drawing that has the proposed grades on it over the existing rock wall grades. The one that's
Anthony,
got
if you may,
the
can
red
you
lines
see
on it.
where he's talking about?
It's 1 of 10, number 1 of 10 site plan, I think.
Yeah, that one will do. That, all of those red lines are cut. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on the drawing. It wouldn't be there. So that is a cut, and it's, if you look at the existing topography, and I live on the road. I drive by it every day. That's a rock face
Yeah,
are
no, that's
cutting
grading,
into.
sir. That's not a rock cut.
Well,
It's
then what-
grading. It's not a rock cut.
This has to be cut low enough to put soil there to put the plantings there.
There's no rock wall there. It's a ledge wall 15 feet back from the sight line. We're not going to cut the face of the wall. We're just going to take the whatever overgrowth is in front and put hollies in the front.
I'm sorry, we need to get together over a drawing in a room somewhere, because I'm looking at grades that say 476 I'm looking at the grades, which are the proposed grades. And I'm looking at the existing grades, which is a steep slope. And you're cutting there. It's a cut, right?
It's a
So you're
grading
saying
of
it's
the
not a
earth.
cut
It's
into,
not
you're saying
grading, we're not cutting any rock.
Can I say
Grading of the
something?
earth
Excuse
to
me.
put in a
Excuse me,
landscape.
William, Tom?
Yes, sir.
You know what would help everyone's edification on this? simply show sections here, and then you're gonna really see through the section how much you're really cutting. You might be cutting 1 foot, 2 foot, as opposed to what we may think. And it looks a lot worse on this plan. But I think if you did sections here, Anthony, and then show it to the planning board, and then show a retaining wall that's tiered, that I think would give them a lot more information to see the true impacts to this slope.
Mr. Cioli, we don't need to put in a tiered wall. That's just a waste of time and construction of something that's not going to be aesthetically what is naturally there.
Well, why don't you, but you're missing the point. I
We're
said,
just grading this out, putting in some, if you go to the landscape plan and look at the landscape plan, all we're doing is just grading out the existing shrubs and what's in front of the wall right now with the cut going into the driveway and berming this up with soil.
I understand that.
Yeah, because this is
I
pure
understand
rock.
that,
Yeah.
But a
So,
section,
Tony, can you please go to the landscape plan to show them, they're thinking that this is like an entrance to a highway where there's only got a few trees in the front of the driveway on either side to make it look nice for an entrance.
I understand that, and it makes perfect sense.
Can
However,
you please go and show them the landscape plan, because this is going way out of line.
I understand that, but a section is gonna get the point across a lot clearer than trying to just look at the grades. And it's gonna be,
Can you zoom in
it's
on
gonna,
those trees that are there? Or the hollies that are there and on the right side? We've just got a few hollies in front of the existing ledge wall. Nothing's being removed. We're just cleaning up all the vines and the shrubs and whatever overgrowth is in the front of the wall that's existing there now.
Then why is there,
And
why,
regrading it to put in new topsoil and brand new hollies to make the wall look nice. and to
It's because
cover it
it's
up
all
like
complete.
Like the board said.
It's ledge rock, so if you cut the ledge rock, you can't plant on the ledge rock. So you got to
No,
cut the
but-
ledge
but
rock a
the-
little bit lower,
Yeah,
put
but
soil,
what
berm
I'm
up the soil
what
and
I'm
plant
trying
on
to
it.
so if it's ledge rock,
explain to
why,
you,
just
and
leave
I'm
it
gonna
alone?
explain to the board. The ledge rock is 15 feet in from the sight line. It's a straight sheer wall. In front of there's 15 feet of open space.
That's not what your drawing shows.
Well, I'll say it in clear as that. And if you look on the right side coming into the driveway, what do I have? I have a couple small trees in here, one evergreen with a couple decorative trees in here. Tony, if you may, just show them what we're looking to plant in front of either side of the driveway. It's not a lot
No,
of
in front of you.
plantings. We've got one row on the left side and we've got 2 rows on the back side because it's being burned. So when the trees go in, you don't see the wall.
Yeah, we were worried about this being all rock cut and shielding the rock cut. So we're trying to put soil up against the rock to
Yeah,
have
but
its
Anthony-
soil depth for
Anthony,
And that's
why don't
what
you-
the board
Anthony.
wanted. And that's
Yeah.
what the board wanted.
I think the sections are still gonna help explain to the board how much cut is being there. That's why you do sections.
All of these are cut.
Yes.
The whole thing's a cut.
Yeah.
And that's rock. And let me just suggest to you on the Inningwood Road frontage. I think that the conversation that we had out there included a discussion, and we don't decide anything in these sidewalks. We have conversations, but they aren't in any way dispository. Those decisions are made in a public meeting like this. But one of the things that we had thought about was if you just leave that rock face alone, you don't have to landscape it. Don't cut it to landscape it. Just leave it alone. It's been there for, ever since they realigned Inningwood Road, which by the way, is the source of this piece of land nobody could figure out who owns. They did this when they put the Taconic in. So I suspect it has something to do with state improvements. But just leave that rock face alone. If you don't
We
have to
can't
touch
because we
it,
need the
don't
sight
touch
lines. We need to cut it back for the sight lines.
it. You just told me you don't need to cut it.
Tony.
You just told me you don't need to cut it.
Tony.
Make up your mind.
Tony. Listen,
Yes.
I've heard it one way, I've heard it another way now. I am more than happy to leave everything alone the way it is with what's existing there now, with the rock and the natural, whatever evergreens are in front of there. I have no problem. The only thing that I will do in the maintenance easement agreement that Jerry's in the process of working with the town board attorney, which he's in the process of reaching out to, is that I will maintain the sight line if there's any growth or anything that goes over the sight line by either cutting back, keeping it cut back of what's existing there now. And
That's
just,
excellent.
Well, that's a requirement. That would be a requirement.
right, of
Yeah, but you
course,
say that,
of
okay.
course. If you, and I'm willing to do it that way if you like that look. Instead of having something with beautiful hollies, I'm willing to keep it this way for you. I have no problem.
Can I comment since you guys are talking about planting and I've been listening?
Sure, Dennis.
I don't know the volume of soil that you're talking about, but like when I was hearing about backfilling soil and then just dropping in trees, that, depending on, how much soil and height and volume, that's a different sort of stability situation than if you're just, digging a hole in established, grounds to drop in a bald and burlap tree. So when I see this amount of planting, depending on how much the ground underneath would or would not be disturbed, would or would not be backfilled, how that backfill would be installed, all those trees, that it would be a lot for them to sort of, withstand, just to sort of maintain, upright positioning and to grow. So I would advocate for the less is more, frankly, even though the design, at the end of the day, someone may prefer, may look better. Depending on the amount of work that you're looking to do there, it may be more difficult to achieve. So I just wanted to say that. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, there are tree pit details and shrub pit details in the drawings, which are standard details, right? I mean, they just come off the shelf, and that's fine because they're tried and true. But if you were to put for the American holly, which goes on this particular, on the Inningwood Road frontage that you're proposing on what you will create as a steep slope, your tree pitch, it shows that it's gonna have to be in the neighborhood of 6 to 7 feet for the size of the root ball, something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood. And on a steep slope, how are you gonna deal with that, right? How are you gonna stabilize that root ball without doing something on that slope in order to keep it there and keep it stable? The drawings don't represent that and what the impact is on all of that. That's just a tremendous amount of work with all those hollies on that slope. And I'm actually, in the end, the consequences, if I'm right about this, and I'm not happy to be proved wrong, but if I prove wrong, I prove wrong. I think the consequences of this, I think it's going to keep the neighborhood look the way it does, and help keep the neighborhood look the way it does on that road. And I think it's going to save you a bunch of money. And I think it's going to keep us from having, I'm sorry, let me finish. I think it's going to keep us from having to disturb steep slope, which is something that we do worry about and is our responsibility.
I'm okay with that. I'm
Great.
just trying to, I'm okay with leaving what is existing there. I don't have a problem.
But we have to cut the rock for the sight lines, William. We have to cut it back to appease the sight lines.
Yeah, but the rock is 15 feet back from the sight line already.
So
What has to be cut back is the actual trees and shrubs and things of that nature that are projecting past the sight lines.
Gentlemen, I think that we're not going to, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think we're going to resolve the technical details here and what's on the drawings and what people think is on the drawings and isn't on the drawings. It seems to me that this is Bob Scioli. I think that the best solution, if it can be achieved, is strike the sight line, and where a retaining wall is required, put a retaining wall in, and otherwise leave the existing slope alone. And if that is something which can be verified in the field with some help from you and the applicant, maybe we can come back with a solution here that makes everybody happy.
I'm okay meeting Bob Scioli out at the site by all means.
Well, based on the sight lines, guys, I was very clear to make certain that what Colliers did works. So you really got to revamp the plans to make it very clear on the site plan and get like a cut sheet to go up this whole area, going up 400 feet looking west to make sure that's going to work, and then show it on the plan. And there was another application, I believe it was for on King Street, where to Tom's point, they just put a wall and all the sightlines were cut in front of it. So you just went right up to the wall, give a little bit of buffer for that, for the sightlines, and leave everything behind it. And I think that's a good solution to Tom's point.
Yeah, I think, Bob, the confusion with the Collier's plans too is that they weren't showing my proposed contours. So you're looking at the sight lines through the existing.
Yeah, I think.
But they're adding that now.
Yeah, I think they should be based on your contours, and it's.
Yeah.
They got to really be shown on your plan because you have a 1 foot contour interval. They only had a 2, so.
Yeah.
But I think, sure, I'll work with you on that. If you want to come up with plans to Tom's point, the planning board's point, I think it's really between you and me, Anthony, to work out with that issue.
And gentlemen, I think that while you're out there, it would be great if you also took a look at the downhill sightline wall condition as well. If we could just, focus on that for maybe a conclusion on that side also. Maybe it won't work, but I'm telling you, I know that's rock. I mean, I know it's rock. So I don't understand cutting it back in order to put plants there to beautify it. I think that Dennis makes an excellent point about how much dirt you're gonna have to put on that slope to do it, stabilization, so on and so forth. So I would rely on retaining walls, both east and west, or north and south, whatever the right cardinal directions are here, and see if we can solve it that way.
I think we just went that way because it was mentioned that no one wanted to look at the walls and we had to screen the walls. So we were trying every effort to try to screen the walls. So we pushed them further back to make room for plantings.
Exactly.
I think you'll confuse those with the interior walls further along on the driveway and back of the house.
Okay.
So we were concerned about those, I think, and benching it even there. I mean, we have walls all over the place here.
The other, if I could just, don't mean to interrupt, but the other aspect of the discussion today really is partially driven by going out to the site, making the site visit, and actually seeing the condition that exists from all angles, including being on the site. And that's something that is within our purview, and sometimes we often do in order to get a better understanding of the project. So with that information, I think that maybe we can all work together to make it better for everybody.
Dick, Eldad, Kanan, any questions? We've been monopolizing this. Any questions, comments?
My question was about the second entrance. Does that, if we are readdressing how this is, if you're not chipping rock, et cetera, is this going to be, was there a second reason for this second road or construction road at all?
Is to get the septic system in service.
Mine, it's a construction, to put it lightly, it's convenience, but it's really to access the areas. But it's very, very unusual. I can't recall ever seeing
It's 40 feet.
Yeah, and again, my druthers on this is you get one entrance. It's a one-family home. The impacts to this property are so significant. So I think that should be looked at. And again, Tom doesn't seem to subscribe to this, but I'd like to at least see, I don't know if we ever saw the prove out, maybe Anthony, you could do it quickly, but to show that it's impossible to get up to the house site, because of steep cliff, steep hills, which are on the southern side of the home site. Obviously, it's very steep there. We walked it. It was very steep there. Yep. So we can take a look and see how that might work. It's anyway. And again, when I was out there, I thought that the entrance that you have proposed, even for the construction site, should be moved a little bit further to the west and working with the grade rather than blasting through that initial steep rock slope. But anyway, it's a matter of probably for engineers, a very simple arithmetic mathematical equation. But I'm a big believer in I always hear about impossibilities, but it's sometimes it's just a matter of figuring out what the cost is to figure out how that might work. And by the way, it's a combination, house, site and all this kind of stuff.
I actually think that it's a simple math calculation, which is a difference in elevation from
Which I have on the section that shows.
400 to where the house is, which is
458.
458.
In a
And
matter of
I think you're gonna end up with something close to a 20% slope, but
Probably
with the
more,
lawn we
yeah.
have available.
This is a section almost through that point, right through here, see? And I believe you're down at 380 at the road and the house is up at 464.
Yeah, well, you're going up the front of the hill.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
that's not helpful.
Come on. You don't go up that way.
60% right through here, but
Through where?
right through here, this section right here, we tried to grade for the excavator.
Yeah, but you're not gonna drive a
that's-
road through that.
And that's not the way you put in your excavator either. So I don't, I don't get it.
No, I'm talking about putting a driveway through here. Up to this.
Understand. Yeah, but there's ways of working with the grade, and obviously it's gonna be some cut and fill on there, but again, I think it's potentially, it may not prove out, and all the engineers will say it's way over 14%, won't work, can't work. But there's ways of looping this and working with a grade that sometimes might work out.
Yeah, but I guess the fact of the matter is we haven't seen that it doesn't work yet. I guess that's possible.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Anthony, hasn't that previously, prior to the approvals from the previous owner, you had visited about putting the driveway in that lower section several times to no prevail, and it moved up to the property line in order to meet the slopes of the driveway to get into the house, correct?
Yeah, it was before my time, but yes, they went through the process, speaking to the person from my office that originally went through this process, and it was the sightline issues and getting up to the house. It just worked its way back up.
Sightline issues because there's a huge belly down at the bottom. That's what first catches my eye,
Yeah.
and then the heights. But Mr. Scioli, were you involved with that when they tried to put the road in at the bottom?
I'm going to cut you off. It does not matter if he was involved in it or not. This is a new application. We start de novo, new application, new permits. Very nice that you did it 10, 20, 13 years ago. That's great. This is a new application. I would urge you to take a look at this alternative if you wish to move the application further along. Forget the 2009. You got an approval. It wasn't used. It's been abandoned. We're aware of it. We want to get you approved. We intend to get you approved, but we're asking you to do what we do on these applications, and that is to explore alternatives, not as straw dogs, but as real alternatives. Dick, I think you said you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, back to the lower pathway. I think a pathway is going to be needed there to get rid of the stone, also to access some of the facilities that are beyond the current grading and limit line over the course of time. So I think if it's addressed that way, it doesn't have to be a road. It just has to be understood that it's a pathway. Don't plant trees in the way of it. That's all that I have to say about that.
Are you suggesting that it should
I can
remain as
think
a
of,
pathway for access to the SSDS and for future? Dick, are you suggesting that the path should remain so that we have access in the future for treatment or whatever, the SSDS areas?
Yep.
Okay. It's more of a permanent thing then, okay.
I think it has to.
and the only other thing I can think of, which is more expensive, is that instead of having a straight drop, try and figure out how to have some bends in it so that the overall reduce, it's not 13% or what I thought I saw on one other drawing, but something less.
Are you talking about the service road or are you talking about the main driveway, Dick?
I'm talking about the driveway.
Okay.
Okay. That's just
The only other thing I can think of to deal with that, it may be not feasible, but take a look at it, please.
So I wasn't able to make the site visit, but I have driven by the site. And I agree with my fellow board members about the concerns here, but I think it raised, this site is so challenging. Again, we've talked about this in the past. The site is really challenging, and so it sort of raises a question about, is there a plan that is acceptable here, given the challenges of the site? From my perspective, there needs to be, right? And how do we get to that plan? And I'm not sure what the answer is, but I'm hoping that we're inching towards that. I'm not sure, but the other question, or a question that I have, and maybe we've talked about this before, it's been a few months and we saw this, so excuse me, we've had this conversation before, but this proposal, Sabrina, I think you're saying meets zoning requirements, but is there a better proposal that wouldn't meet zoning requirements, that would require a variance as well? And maybe that's worth considering on this side. If we've had that conversation before, I apologize, but variances are for special circumstances, and this is certainly a special circumstance.
My comments, Eldad, I think that, as far as the zoning compliance, I am reacting to plans that the applicant is setting forth and just examining them. From what I understand here is the board still needs some more information to, really understand the site disturbance as to whether or not there needs to be adjustments, which would then, cause variances, rightfully so, that to be issued and granted. So.
Right, I understand that. I'm just what I'm suggesting is perhaps there's solutions here that would put the site not in compliance, but would require a variance, but that would meet some of the other concerns that are being raised by the board.
I think that I understand and appreciate the notion that maybe there's an administrative way to solve this problem. But I think the problem is not in zoning, and the solution is not in zoning. The house is where the house has to go if you're going to put a house here. And the problem is, I think, essentially, how do you get to the house? And this is an engineering problem that's presented by the existing topography there. So I think that that's really what the problem is. And I don't think there's any intention of this board to disallow this application. I mean, that's not our intention here. Yes, our intention is to work with the application to get to a yes, as you often say, and I think that's always our intention here. So I don't think that introducing the potential intention of or outcome that this is not going to end up being approved. That's not our intention. Yes, we're all trying to get to a proper solution here. We always do that. And in this particular case, this is one of the hardest and most difficult applications that I've seen with respect to steep slopes and the topography and access to the site and the engineering which is required in order to do it. It really is, for a single piece of property, it really, really is. And that's and all the time that we've been doing this, and that's what is causing us pause here. And we are looking for a solution, which I think we have it. I really do think we have it. I think it just means that we need to ask Bob Scioli, in his good graces and good work, to work with the applicant to come up with something which is a lot better than which is a lot less invasive than what we see on these drawings. And I think there's a solution there, despite all of the tension back and forth. I think there's a solution here.
So Anthony and I will meet and discuss it. And my way of thinking is on this: if you want less impacts to the steep slopes, the only way to do it in my mind is to put retaining walls and tier them and reduce the amount of cut required for the driveway entrance and the sightlines.
Yeah, I just want to echo Tom's thoughts. I mean, you know, there's no intention, we're working to get to a yes here. We're working to get to the least worst yes, because it is such a very, very difficult site with so many constraints. So that's the intention here. There's history on the site. There's good faith work on the part of the applicant on this, but we need more information to make sure that we're exhausting all possibilities, because this site is just so difficult. And I would agree with Tom. I don't think I've seen a more difficult single family site than this.
That's why it's been undeveloped for so long.
Yeah.
And, you know, now's the time because of, you know, economics or whatever, and we're gonna see difficult sites, more of them coming our way. And I think we need to be prepared for them. And this is just one of them.
Was there anything else?
We have to take a break for a minute.
Was there anything in Dennis's commentary or anything else in Bob's that you should clarify this evening?
Thank you, Chairman. I was gonna just, I know it's been a carryover, and it's too bad, because I guess we should have maybe asked Bill Spade to stay. But, you know, I just had the carryover with regards to the walls and, you know, our local code with historic preservation. And granted, it's not apples to apples, but if you happen to take note of the examiner from September 20 to 26, so I guess a more recent version, what the cover story was, I just want to vet and make sure that there are no issues with respect to the, you know, remnant older walls on the site and anything to do with our code for historic preservation or resources, because I know that's where the septic's supposed to go. So I would hate to have to go through all this effort, all this vitriol, and then, you know, it'll all be directed to me because the walls will be something significant and we just never vetted that. So I just get that out of the way now, because it may not be, I mean, from reading the code, but I don't know. I want the Preservation Commission to comment, and then, you know, we'll make the final decision.
Just to put you at ease, we did get response back from, I believe it's a Gray Williams, that they're of no significance. They're just knee walls. So we have
Okay,
that
if you
email.
can get- Great. Yeah, if you share that record, then we're good, and nobody will look to hit me when I'm walking around town with my yellow vest.
We just got that yesterday. That's why you probably haven't seen it yet. But I do have it here,
Perfect.
which I'll forward on to
Great.
you.
Thank you. Bob, anything else that we haven't touched upon in your memo? Oh, okay, you're all set? Is that a live picture?
I'm not sure.
I think he said no.
Okay, I think we covered. Okay. All right, so just to kind of sum up where we are as we try to move forward here. With regard to the current proposed plan, obviously we'll have Bob Cioli and Anthony outside to meet in terms of the sightlines. At some point, on whatever is your preferred plan, we need stormwater details. We still don't have those. We've got to get this property issue resolved, so we know what we're doing here in terms of what the property is and how you're accessing it. Whose property are we going through? I personally like to see at least a quick study, alternative study in terms of what those slopes were. If it was done once before, years ago, terrific. We could just bring those back out. I think we've hit everything on this several times. Are there any questions from the applicant?
I have no questions. I just think that we're going to go the natural route and look to leave what's existing there with less disturbance.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, very good. All right, so we'll see you soon when we have those issues resolved, and look forward to the next submission. Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Okay, we move now to our next item, and this is a time extension for Dr. Singh. 15 Heathcote Drive, application for a subdivision approval, lot line amendment, merger, wetland permit, tree removal permit, stormwater permit. Action on considerations granting of time extension. We last heard this in I think we approved it back in October 2021. Okay, so we have an approval. We have, I thought, a very nice and persuasive note from Jerry Barrett outlining the reasons behind the need for the extension. Any issues at all with anyone on the request?
I don't have any issues specifically on this one, but other than to be certain that, and I don't know how the code works with respect to these things, but as time goes on, aspects of the code could be amended while this is being held as an extension. Does the previous existing approval grandfather any subsequent code amendments before we finally, I guess is asking for a final approval, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a pending application, right? And if there are code changes in between the time of the person asking for an extension and the actual application approval, do the code amendments need to apply to the approval, and does the application need to be amended if it's required by code, if it's out of code?
I just want to clarify, so this is not received full subdivision approval? Is it?
I don't recall.
It's an extension, so it must not have, right?
It's that the final planning board approval, hi everyone, Jerry Barrett here. The final planning board approval is pending the planning board signing the plat. And if you recall.
Yeah, we need to change the order.
Yeah, so. I'm sorry, so they did receive they received an approval, we just haven't received the final approval. So they are grandfathered under what was reviewed. However, as they're asking for extensions, that's always something you can look at, that the code has changed in this way, whereas, you haven't received that final approval yet, and, that's the risk that they're taking as they proceed to get extended.
And I'm not aware of any code changes that would affect this application, so I'm okay with it.
Since 2021, there hasn't been any.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Actually, historically, we've actually had that occur. So if you recall on Hamlet Ridge, that occurred.
Yeah.
And we in fact decided not to impose the new standard on them because we'd gone through a full FEIS, and Grace Realty was the only, Grace Lane.
And it's within your discretion to make that decision.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to grant the extension?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. The next item, it's not on my agenda, but I think it might be on the one that went through the town email. I didn't pull it up there. So we wanted to have a brief discussion pursuant to the discussion we had with the town board last week with regard to public property opportunities in the Chappaqua Hamlet. So this is just a preliminary discussion, just to get some thoughts out there. I think it was just to try to keep the momentum going. I felt we had a very good discussion with the town board, but I thought it would be interesting to get some ideas. And I don't know if we necessarily want to send a planning board note in, unless the planning board note would be just a listing of the various items that planning board members have discussed and wanted to get out there. But anyway, I thought it would be a good idea in the context of the current town plan, and the goals, the aspirations and goals of the town plan, and how we would dovetail that into what we thought might be worthwhile projects, reasonable ones, of course, with regards to the public property. With the understanding that, as we discussed the other night, we have all kinds of built-in constraints. The property is already spoken for. It's not just free. Allowances have to be made, consideration has to be made, budgeting has to be done, et cetera. So I'll just open it up to folks, just, let's keep it to a few minutes, so we're not gonna be here all night on this. But I just wanted to get the thoughts from folks, so we can perhaps get something back to the town board. Before I forget, just an administrative issue, the October 4th meeting, we're not doing it, right?
October 5th.
October 5th meeting, well, we're not doing it, right? It's canceled. So that meeting we're not gonna meet on October 5th.
Because no agenda?
No, because we had one thing on it and it's not gonna be ready.
So there's nothing for the agenda?
Nothing for the agenda.
No, there's nothing for the agenda, and the timing between the holidays that are occurring right now, and it just has thrown the schedule off. The meetings are back to back and we haven't had a chance to catch up.
So the big thing that was going to be on was the Chappaqua Crossing final papers. And the staff just needs more time to get that done. So we'll probably look at that for the 18th. Right? So anyway, enough on the administrative stuff. So anyway, thoughts, anyone? Feel free to get some thoughts in terms of what people's concepts are, or the opportunities for, potential opportunities are for the town-owned property.
So if I could just, sorry, because I did so much talking last time, but I wonder if maybe we could be more useful instead of coming up with a potential list of what could happen on the property, because the process is going to yield, that they're going to go through is going to yield lots of ideas from a lot of people. And I'm not sure that our voice on that subject should have any more standing than anybody else's. I mean, let that process happen the way it can. And as that process evolves, if we are invited into, as a board, invited into talk about that, I think that would be great. You know, if anybody has any individual ideas, I think, obviously those are excellent things to voice with the town board. I wonder if we could be more useful in helping them with the process of how to get to a conclusion here. The process could go in a number of different ways, right? I mean, it could be, and I'm not sure that the town board is necessarily clear on that. I know I'm not clear on that yet. Not that I have to be clear on that because it's not my decision, but it seems to me that helping them through the process to get started right down that road, or get started in a rational way down that road, would be helpful to them, rather than coming up with ideas that, maybe get inserted down the road later on. And it seemed to me that the real discussion was not what should happen there that we had last time, but how to get to a conclusion of what happens there. And some of us have experience in going through that process. Eldad, I know that you do, I do. Kanan probably does also. So I'm just wondering if we offer anything to them. I don't want to be pedagogical about this. I mean, we don't want to preach to the town board. But if there's a way to help them look at some alternative strategies of how to get started on this, right? What are the first 3 steps in order to go down the road? Maybe that would be most helpful to them. That's my thinking.
So I think, Tom, I think you're right. I worry that, opening it up, it's almost too big a question, too big a problem without some parameters or some guidance. And I think on some level, there has to be some basic targets identified, like we want X or X, Y, and Z without limiting it too much. But I'm not sure exactly how to do that or how to help the town board figure that out. I said it when we met with the town board, in the sense that there has to be some justification for doing this. Like, why are we doing something, right? Why are we asking the question? And I may have said it inartfully, and I think I may have when I said, like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? I'm not suggesting there are problems, but the question is, like, why are we asking this question even? Or why is the town board asking this question? And I think if they can define that a little bit, that could help point them in a direction of a process to help answer the question. I do think that someone needs to say, well, I'd love to see something better here. I mean, that's obviously generic, but that even hasn't been said yet. And so, or I'd love to see something that activates the town. Now, I know I have my own opinions, and Tom, you're right. We're not trying to, our voice isn't necessarily more valuable than the general public's, but I would like to hear something more from the town board pushing in a direction so that we can help shape it. I don't know if that's helpful, but those are some of my thoughts.
Just if I could respond to that, it is helpful, and I completely agree with you that there needs to be some affirmation of a purpose, right? Affirmation of why we are doing this. And the affirmation, the source of that could come from, the document that we all sort of like to, poke fun at, but I think it can be really, really useful. It's there for a reason. It went through a public process, which is a comprehensive plan. And it's possible I think it's possible, it would be useful for the town board to go back to that and say, we heard you then. And what we heard then, we think applies today, because we, in our recent conversations, and maybe they don't want to reform the code, but in their recent engagement with, as flawed as it may or may not be, with the town on what happens downtown, we heard a lot, right? And we heard a lot about, what we do want, what we don't want. And I think that what they do want could probably be found in the comprehensive plan and sort of start there. I think that when you have a really complicated project or a complicated problem like this, it's going to sound counterintuitive, but I think it really, really helps to start by being reductive. Get small, right, on it. Let's just focus on the one thing, because if you start to talk about, well, what about the parking, right, you're never going to get there. So I think you need a process which starts reductive, and then with the kind of statement that I think you're advocating, which I completely agree with, and then finding the process to take that reductive statement and chart pathways to the next statements that need to be made, right? The next questions that need to be answered. And you're going to get in the middle of this, and it's going to be really complicated. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. And that's what happens in complicated projects, complicated problems. In the end, the skill is in bringing it back all together again and looking at the conclusion and going back to the reductive statement and say, we did it, right? But if you don't chart a pathway which to get you there without going off into tangents, it's going to be really difficult. And I was just agreeing with you, I think, that we need, that perhaps they need a reductive, I'll just use that term, probably a stupid one, but a reductive statement that this is why we're doing what we're doing. And then chart, the next 2 or 3 steps, procedural steps, not content, procedural steps of where they go from there. That was my thought. How we can maybe help them.
I think that makes great sense. Great sense.
I mean, part of the problem before was that we may not have done that, and they were seeing something which was very built, or something that was very fleshed out, and it turned out to be not what others want, not everyone could see or digest or take in. So it's almost like defining that statement is absolutely necessary. I totally agree. It's true that it's difficult for people to buy into something without knowing it. Like it seems, if it's, it's difficult to imagine what it would be, but at the same time, the comp plan did achieve something in terms of words that we can use as a fundamental statement, for sure. I also think that once that reductive statement is made, then coming up with the ideas of like, these were some of the things you wanted, and I'm a big believer that we should be able to find other solutions that have been implemented in other places and just bring that up as references before we even almost pick up a pencil and draw. I think would be useful. So that could be another thing to consider.
Yeah, I think so too. That could be very helpful. Because we all, I don't, I'm sure Kanan does, I do, and maybe the rest, I do, I'm certain you do also, Eldad. I mean, there are lots of things I'm aware of, you know, projects I'm aware of, that could have application as just sort of an example how one thing worked out in a particular way in a particular place to show that, well, that's not necessarily you want to do exactly that, but this is what's possible, right? This is a window that shows you what, you know, but there's a piece of this that you could do, which, you know, could be very useful. So I think that's a good suggestion, without being, again, pedagogical, preachy about it. But I think the tone is really important here, myself.
Dick, did you have any thoughts?
You're muted, Dick.
You're muted, Dick.
I have no comment other than march on.
You're mute.
Other than what? What did they say?
March on.
March on, okay, okay,
March on.
good. Well, I think that this is a great conversation. I think you guys have had experience in this, and I think it's terrific that the town gets to use your insights. I think this makes good sense. Rather than just coming up with a list, we want picnic benches, we want this, that, and the other thing, you know, those kinds of things. It's more of a generic, again, as Eldad, again, I think stated very nicely, what's the question? You know, what's the issue? What's the vision? We've rolled around the different ways of talking about it, but I think that's it. And again, consistent with what we've seen before in the comp plan.
And
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as an individual, I would say, the reason I would wanna think about it is because it's not going to be the same, even if I come from like, don't touch anything kind of mind frame. It's like, there will be change, and do you want a say in it? And do you want to, and then, I mean, that's my way of looking at it as a starting point even for the folks who don't wanna think about it. And then there is, of course, what is it that you really want in your town center? And none of it being like, we wanna be there, we wanna see more life, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera. So there's different ways to approach this. And maybe we are pulling those statements out and helping people really almost pick from a plethora of like things that they've said as part of the comp plan.
I agree. One of the other things that I just suggested, and this is maybe a detail, but I think really, really important, is that if you politicians know this, if you control the language, you control the argument. And not that this is an argument, but we really need to, the town board ought to be really, really careful about the language they use when they talk about vision. You know, when they talk about, first of all, there's planning jargon, and I would just throw that book right out the window, because that immediately, and like walkability, you know, people, what is walk? Even I don't even know what that means. I mean, I know what they say it means, but to me, it just, how do you explain that to somebody, I think? So, and they've heard that, and so I think that we ought to just encourage plain speaking. And if you have to, if it takes like a sentence to get an idea across, or 3 sentences to get an idea across, then, you know, maybe it's the wrong idea. You got to figure out how to be plain speaking to a bunch of really intelligent people out there who justifiably may be looking at what's coming, maybe coming with some level of skepticism. And just tell it just the way it is. And sometimes it's hard to do that because it's easy to use, you know, the language which is common and has been taught us, planning language, for example. But I think that it would be worth the effort and to be really careful about how to communicate these things. That's just my personal thought. So, we've had this conversation, is there like a next step? What do we do?
I'm just curious to know what was the conversation on the ULI bit? I know, I missed that.
You can watch it.
Oh,
It was lengthy.
You can watch it. It's lengthy, so watch it.
okay,
So don't put your repeat it here for everybody.
okay,
You right there, you should watch it.
yeah.
It was good conversation. It was very good. Tom quoted one of his old students, architectural students.
Yeah, Vitruvius. He wasn't off, he kept running off to the forum.
But that was a wonderful quote.
Kept going to the past.
Okay, his architectural student, yes, okay.
Well, it was Eldad who said, oh, they were just my contemporary.
I love it, I missed a good one, sorry.
Yes. But I think we have some thoughts here. I've been taking notes from your good conversation and good observations. I'll try to put together some stuff. You guys can, tear it apart, we can, throw it around and see what we do. I think what we'll do is allocate time. I don't think we're that busy for the 18th, are we, Felicia?
No.
Okay. We're trying to drum up business. I mean, it's just
We haven't had that
scaring
session.
people away here. I mean, we're approving these things way too quickly, like tonight. I mean, that should have been 3, 4, 5 meetings over that restaurant, right?
Great danger of being irrelevant.
Exactly. More of them. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll table it and we'll talk again, and we'll see everyone then on October 18th, not October 5th. And but when we do meet on October 18th, you're going to have a very large document, Chappaqua Crossing, prepared, so we really have to go through that. Right? I mean, that'll be a long resolution.
It's not.
It's not that long,
It's an
no.
amendment.
Great.
Excellent.
Oh, it's just the amendment. Oh,
It's just
okay.
the amendment for the refuse enclosures.
Okay.
Oh, that should be nothing.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
not.
That's easy. Okay, good. All right, anything else, anyone? If not, is there a motion to close the meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.